The start streaming button. Yeah.
Pretty much. All right, going live, and we are live. Okay. Hi, Jonah. Hi, everybody else.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is pretty early for both of us, so it might take us the first 5 minutes to wake up. But we're both happy to be here for this Q&A. And again, we're going to get back to some of your questions. And we start with prioritizing. Ooh, I just realized I didn't do something, which is I have the wrong thread linked on YouTube. So let me make sure I update that before we get into this. So we're going to start, as always, with our forum and the people who left posts on our forum on this thread. And then we're going to move from there into the live stream comments. So feel free to leave all your comments, please do, on the YouTube live stream. But we will get to it afterwards. It's the last thing that we do. I just updated the YouTube description, and then let me put the forum in the comments there. So that way you can click that, and you can follow along with the questions that we're about to get into. Sorry, I was kind of like doing two things at once. Did I hit everything?
I think so.
Cool. Okay, it's becoming habitual. Okay, so I did the talking. Why don't you start?
Oh, there's
I
no Patreon questions. I guess that's what I didn't ask.
There is a
We're
regular
not doing that.
question, from Backfield 3779. So we can
Did you
start.
want to do that first or?
Yeah, I said that we'll prioritize patrons and regulars, so we can start with them.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
Oh, I have to scroll down. I see what you're saying. Sorry.
yeah,
I misunderstood.
yeah. You're good.
All right. Backfield 3779 asks, are you planning on properly testing Fedora Asahi Remix now that it is officially out? Are you going to review it for the channel? Are you thinking about that right now?
I actually put on my to-do list some kind of like a title idea of Fedora is now available for MacBooks, but I don't want to test it, and so I feel like I wouldn't add much value unless I tested it, you know? I don't have like a
Right.
spare device. I don't trust it enough to put it on my main device like you were. Wait, no, that you had two devices at that time, so maybe that's fake
No,
news. Um,
that is fake news, misinformation over here.
okay. But no, I'm really excited for it. For those who don't know, Fedora Asahi Remix is essentially a way to get Fedora natively installed on modern MacBooks at this point in time and other Apple devices. So it looks really cool, but it's still missing some key functionality. Like you can't use USB-C monitors, which I use. You can't use Touch ID. You can't use microphones, I think, or some of just the short limitations I noticed.
Yeah,
What about
the
you?
microphone one's the big one, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still, I think, in a state where I also use my MacBook as my main computer now, and I don't have other Apple devices anymore. I have another laptop, but it's Windows, so I can't really test it out right now. And it's not really, I don't think it's in a state where like normal people can use it as a desktop either. Um, Especially if I won't use it, because I think like getting less technically interested people using it would be difficult. So like for me, it's not really exciting yet as like a potential desktop for like a potential desktop use case, but I'm super excited to see like where it goes from here. Um, but yeah, I think just because it's like out officially, it's not really something that I would consider ready for like a general Techlore audience. You know what I
Definitely.
mean?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I wish I could. It'd be cool to say, hey, there's actually a way if you own a Mac device to
Yeah.
get Linux natively installed, but it's just not there yet, I don't think. I'm with you.
Hmm.
I want to try it though. I've actually been kind of looking at the used market to see if there's some Apple device to buy to
Yeah,
just for
it'd be
this one
cool. It'd be
purpose.
cool.
Yeah,
I
it's a
just
lot of
think that like
commitment.
your conclusion is going to be not different than what we're discussing now, that it's not ready for prime time yet. That seems to be the consensus based on the other reviews that I've seen from like I think the Linux Experiment did a video on Fedora coming out on it, and that was basically what he was saying, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar. It's going to be better than the Linux phones for sure, but I think it's going to be a similar situation where I can do the
yeah.
reviews. I still need to do those reviews actually, but I think everyone already knows what that review is going to look like. But it still has value though. But yeah.
Hmm.
Um, second.
And then
Oh, you go.
yeah, their second question, how long do you think it'll take for other distros to support Apple's ARM-based devices?
I'd say like half a
I don't know
decade.
if you've seen the news, Henry,
No.
but Ubuntu just announced like they're working with Asahi now. It was
Oh,
at one of their conferences. I just saw this on Mastodon literally last night as I was scrolling through before going to bed, but it seems like progress is being made on that front, working with Asahi to bring that distro to Macs as well. So it
oh, that's
seems like
cool.
that'll be coming sooner rather than later.
That's cool. I would actually, if I had to guess which distro would get it next, I would say Ubuntu just because it has the company backing it and it seems super
Right.
popular. But no, I wasn't on Mastodon last night before going to bed, so I did not hear about this, but that's really cool. I'd still
Breaking
think
news.
like half a decade though is still my guess before Asahi gets all the features and then that gets ported over to each distro and then they're stable and they're not going through major updates every month type of deal. That's my
Uh-huh.
guess, but hopefully it's sooner.
I I wouldn't say that log for sure. Because I think once Asahi like features get moved into like the main Linux kernel, it'll be a lot easier for other distros. I think we'll probably see all the distros that support like the Raspberry Pi, for example, and other ARM-based devices now will gain support for it pretty quickly, I think, once Asahi finishes their work on their end, and there's still
Hmm.
work to do there. But I don't think it'll take 5 years, but maybe two, I'd say,
I know we're kind
before
of
we see like Debian or something.
right. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, well, Debian we might see in 20 years. So like the big thing that I just realized is I think actually the bit before the microphone is an issue, before anything's an issue, I forgot just how bad ARM support is on Linux. Because I was using like a Parallels VM for a Linux distro for a long time, and I still use one. And so much of the
Hmm.
software that I'm reliant on, I can't even get. Like I couldn't get Signal desktop running unless I compiled it myself for the longest time. I think that might still be the case unless Signal rolled out official ARM support. And then Brave did get ARM support, but back when I was doing this, Brave also didn't have any ARM support whatsoever. So I'd have to either compile it or switch to a different browser. So until
Hmm.
Linux developers catch up and add ARM support to their software, and or ideally um, Linux actually has some kind of compatibility layer, kind of like Rosetta, I think that'd be awesome. Unless when you use Fedora Asahi, does it automatically use that weird Rosetta ARM compatibility thing?
It doesn't. There's no reason technically that it couldn't, as far as I know, except that Fedora has very bad support for running both ARM and um 64-bit apps at the same time. Ubuntu does it really well. I was testing it out in a Linux VM on my Mac and like everything, all of the 64-bit apps ran perfectly fine. Like even Signal, I think, was working fine. Testing it out in Ubuntu, but I couldn't get that working in Fedora because I think their package manager just doesn't handle it quite as nicely as Ubuntu does. But
Hmm.
uh, I think Rosetta should work in Linux. Whether they whether that's legal is one thing, and then whether I don't know how they would do it necessarily, but I've seen reports of it running on even other ARM machines, not even Apple hardware. So
Hmm.
I don't know.
Wow, good to know. Well, I hope that gets better. Um, I'm moving up to Whiskey Highball, and it's about encrypted client hello. And I'm not very familiar with this, so if you're familiar with this, I think it's better for you to take this question. But
Uh, yeah, Whiskey Highball asks, with Firefox now rolling out encrypted client hello, does this negate any privacy benefit gained from using multi-account containers? I read this question last night because it was like the first one posted immediately after you posted this, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me then, and it still doesn't make a lot of sense to me now because I don't see why they would be related, these two technologies. So, encrypted client hello, for anyone who doesn't know, is one solution to like the problem that the domain that you're accessing gets leaked when you connect to like an HTTPS website. Uh, sorry, you're making distracting faces over
I'm for people who are
there.
watching this stream, I'm all over the place with like navigating the forum, and so I'm like, oh my God, I feel like such an idiot
What is
right now.
going on here?
But yeah, okay, continue. I am now not touching anything.
Um, what was I even saying? Oh yeah, encrypted client hello. uh, hides that information by like just putting a generic domain name in front of it. It mainly will be used by like big web hosts like Cloudflare, for example, to protect like which specific customer you're connecting to, that kind of thing. Um, but the privacy benefits that that would provide in some limited circumstances are a lot different than the privacy benefits you would get from like multi-account containers and compartmentalizing your cookies. So I don't know why they would be negated. They seem like pretty complementary, not mutually exclusive. So um, yeah, I guess I just don't understand how they're related. I would say there's definitely a place for both, though. And if you want to know more about encrypted client hello, there's a thread on the Techlore forum about Firefox adding this support and Cloudflare adding this support that uh, went into some more detail about this if you want to check it out after the show.
Cool.
Do you have anything to add about Firefox?
Not really. I'm not too super familiar with it, so I need to look into that.
Yeah.
Next question is from Spectator. Will applying for services like DeleteMe? I saw a few DeleteMe questions just briefly looking at these before we started. So let's see how many of these overlap. But will applying for services like DeleteMe work if you intend to remove information from old email accounts that have already been deleted by the user? If you intend from old email accounts. Are you understanding this? If so, can you find remnants of info from the accounts that are previously used to sign up for those emails? Are they? I'm asking because I don't know if I fully understand. Are they asking if DeleteMe will delete information from an account directly? Is that kind of the misunderstanding here?
That, yeah, I'm not sure. That's how I understand it as well, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure what
Uh,
that means.
if you're online right now, Spectator, definitely elaborate. Because if the way we're both interpreting this is that you think DeleteMe will go and delete some information about an account, but it doesn't really do that directly. The way that DeleteMe works is, let's say that some information does get shared with a data broker, and then that becomes public and it's tied to your profile. DeleteMe will just actively search all these profiles for your information and then delete that from there. So it's not actually dealing with any root causes. It's more dealing with the after effects of whatever ends up in the public. So I don't know if that's what you're asking, but that might help if it won't. You can put in your old Gmail account. So when you're signing up for A by DeleteMe, it's going to say what are all the emails you've had, and it'll be able to find those emails and tie them to your profile that it looks for. But it won't be able to actually do anything about those direct accounts, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't know why this is so difficult.
What are you trying to do?
You know what it is? It's the stupid. I mean, normally it works well. The Apple thing where you double tap and it zooms into the text. And then if you start
Oh,
scrolling, it actually keeps the scrolling centered. It's somewhat intelligent. It doesn't work on the
uh-huh.
forum, I don't think.
I've never done that at all. I've never used this Apple feature. Didn't know it was a thing, so
Oh, you should do it. It's
I'll have to
actually a
look
really
into that
cool
later.
feature. Sometimes it's nice on a
It doesn't
big,
seem to work. Are you using Safari?
maybe it's a gesture you have to enable. But two fingers, double
Maybe it
double
is.
tap, not double click.
Oh, never mind. It does work.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something to look into after the show, I think. We can
Right.
move on to have the blank spaces question next. Hi guys, do you know of any guides on how to segregate your IoT devices with a router using OpenWRT? I find their guides a little frustrating how they're written. Wondering also if either you might consider your own video walkthrough on open source routers and how you use it to be private and secure. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any like super easy to write guides. Maybe that's something to consider doing at some point. But yeah, I know their guides and wiki can be a little they're very dense in the technical information and jargon from what I've seen. So I can understand why they'd be a little frustrating. But I don't know if you have any advice on that at all. I don't have anything to add.
For segregating the IoT devices.
Yeah, like
I've
setting up VLANs, that kind of thing.
no, if either of us are going to have experience with this, it'd be you. I haven't really played too much with OpenWRT outside of knowing basic information about it. So I don't know any guides myself either about this, but if anyone's listening, it sounds like a pretty nice market on YouTube that hasn't been explored yet. Just an idea.
Yeah, I would definitely just look up like OpenWRT VLANs, see if you can find a guide. Otherwise we can. I'd have to look after the show. Maybe we can get back to you on the forum if I find anything.
Yeah, if you find something, definitely like get back, DM them, or maybe I won't close the thread this time. Um, Next question is, when you update your phone software, do you prefer the over-the-air method or updating using a computer? Is one method better than the other? Patching the current software versus completely reinstalling the software every time. Is that true? I don't think that's true. I don't think there's a difference in
Um,
the update mechanism.
no, there's not really a difference when it comes to mobile devices specifically, because the operating system on your phone is image based. It's always going to be like a separate partition that's always exactly the same on every phone every time. You'd run into this issue on like Windows computers, for example, where this is why like companies, if you have a large Windows fleet, they'll re-image their Windows machines from scratch like every year or 2 years or whatever, because installing a bunch of patches onto Windows gets crazy over time. But it's not really a big issue on phones. And as far as security goes, like there's no difference between those methods either, because the updates are signed by the company that makes your phone, and um, that signature checks like the integrity to make sure they're not corrupted, and it also makes sure you're not installing like a fake update over the air. So there should be no real difference in doing it either way, basically.
Right. I was curious to hear if there was a difference in how it updated because that's not something I've ever read or seen myself. But that's
Mhm.
also why I use over the air. It's just more efficient for me. So I,
Yeah.
yeah, over the air updates are great. We already got back to backfield because they're a regular. And next question is from Underrate. Oh, I took the last one. Do you want me to start?
Oh,
Maybe you can take. Oh,
I can start.
yeah, you can start.
Underrate Underrate asks, do you think it's a good idea to sign up for a data removal service like DeleteMe if you have very limited personal information out there? I feel like it might be counterproductive in such a scenario. Um, the data removal service gives out personal information to hundreds of data brokers in the data removal request, even though only a handful of data brokers actually have real information about me.
Yeah. Just to start, so the last thing that you said is definitely a good thing to watch out for, but to my knowledge, and I think Jonah specifically looked into this, that's not something that every delete service does. That was just a few of them that were doing this, and I think we checked this, and 8 does not work that way. Is that correct?
Yeah, it really depends. I can't remember what DeleteMe does, but I think it doesn't work that way. You'll have to remind me how this works after. But basically, there's two different approaches that these services take. There's one by Consumer Reports that's free, and a lot of the free ones do this. That works the way that you described, where it just emails all the common data brokers and says, remove all this information about me. There's other services that will scan the internet for your information, and then they will send those takedown requests to results that they find online on people's search sites. So they won't be sending requests um, to sites that don't have it because they won't show up in those results in the first place. That's the approach that I think a lot of the paid services, but not necessarily all of them, take. So it's something to look into because I do think that is a legitimate concern, but it's also not a concern with some of these deletion services. And I don't remember how Delete Me works, if it does that scanning thing or not. So
I believe that's one of the
maybe you know.
ones that we were talking about and or I was looking into as well, and I didn't find reason to think that it did that. So, um, if it's not delete me, there are other services that like guarantee do not do this. So, I would say like that is not a blanket statement to make about all the services. Just make sure the one you do doesn't do this. And with that information, to actually answer your question, do you think it's a good idea to sign up for a data removal service if you have limited PII? I think it depends what your it really does. It depends. So for someone like myself, I didn't really have much information out there, but I still signed up for them because I don't want certain information get out there because I have more of a public facing presence, and so that's something I do value for myself. But if you're somebody who it doesn't really matter too much if an email of yours gets out and you're able to check this manually, you're probably fine. What I tell people, especially who I work with, some of the clients through our coaching, is you have limited time, you have limited energy, and do you want to go through this manually? And if there already is information about them online, maybe it's worth paying for the service for 6 months while you clean everything up. Instead of using your time to clean up, you're using your time to make sure it doesn't get back out there again. So that's where it's really helpful, in my opinion, so you can actually kind of utilize your time a little bit better. But personal preference. It also depends how much money you have, because these services aren't cheap. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would just add that you might also find it useful, like with these scanning services in particular. They'll also like notify you when they find new information. So if you want to be notified about that, um, just for your awareness, it's something to think about. But
Hmm.
yeah, they kind of inherently won't add a lot of value if you don't have any data to delete, because that's all they do.
Right. That's a good point. It's good to be in the loop on any updates. And then I signed up for the service last month, and now it's here.
Right. They had a second question. We said that we'd take a look at JMP chat and Chiogram for voice over IP. Do you have a time frame for this that you can share already? I
No,
don't
unless
think
you've been
so.
secretly working on this without my knowledge. But um,
No, I haven't been looking into this recently, but
no, it's been bad. Actually, it's not terrible. The like I'd say we're slowly getting caught up on things, and it's been really good. But we still have a ways to go on getting
mhm.
caught up. Like I still have 2 interviews to interview from the Nextcloud conference that I went to, and there's a list of a few videos I still need to take care of as well. And that doesn't include the big projects. So there's progress since last month. There has been good progress made, but no, I don't have a time frame. I would hope to have it done in the next couple months, but don't take that at face value. I'm too busy yelling at Jonah.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Next question. What are your thoughts on RSS in a privacy standpoint? Like, using RSS seems like a good way to stay away from non-privacy respecting social media and news services. Do you and Jonah use RSS? If so, what do you use and how do you use it? What can you say about RSS in this age and going forward? Do you want me to go first, or do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I don't have too much to add though, so I think you'll have a better answer. I haven't fit RSS into like my daily workflow yet. I really want to, but I don't spend a lot of time like browsing news articles and that kind of thing in the first place. I mostly like the only thing that I'll look through on a daily basis is like my Mastodon feed, and that has like news articles that the new oil posts and other stuff from within my community. Otherwise, I don't have a lot of like things that I regularly visit or have to keep tabs on. So I just haven't gotten around to setting it up yet. But it definitely is more private than like social media, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, I would say, just to answer that, I don't actually see directly how RSS is a privacy tool or how it can directly help privacy necessarily. But if RSS is the reason why you're not on social media and that's how you're now able to keep up with information, that is indirectly improving your privacy. So I just find personally RSS to be a better way to engage with news in a healthier way that respects you and your time a little bit better. So it's a very efficient way to do things, I think. So that's why I like RSS. I do use RSS, and it's the main way I keep up with news. And I, instead of going through YouTube subscriptions, I get all my YouTube video checks for like the channels I watch, like my daily Judge Judy on in my RSS client. So that's what I have to say. I think RSS is one of like the most ancient technologies that we still talk about, and so I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And I like to think it's making a comeback. So,
Yeah, it definitely seems like it is. So what RSS client do you use?
Reader, REEDER 5.
And you like it?
Love
Best
it.
one you found?
Love it. Love it. Especially if you're a design person, you like good design, nice clean interface. That's where it's at. And on
Hmm.
Android, Feeder, not Reader, Feeder. So
Okay,
that's from
big
F-Droid,
difference. Got it.
Feeder. And that one doesn't have a number on the end, but I'm a little less impressed with the design and stuff with that, but it works well.
Hmm.
Yeah, big fan. Also, you can follow like everything on the Techlore forum via RSS without an account. There's a whole guide on the forum to do that. So if you just wanted to follow news, for example, the news tag on the Techlore forum, you can do that via your RSS client, or you could do
Yeah.
anything. Like you can do anything with RSS. It's really awesome.
You can basically just open any feed you want on the forum and add dot RSS to the end of the URL if you want to know how to do it. So it works
Yes,
super well.
yes. I'm so happy with our forum.
Um,
It's got like passkey support. It doesn't require like any I'll shill it too much. I'll let you go. I
Oh,
like my
great.
forum.
We'll move on to the next question here. At Danny Cap asks, how does the 5.9, 14 eyes and other surveillance alliances fit into your personal threat models, specifically the dragnet aspects of it, as I'm assuming none of our threat models include protecting against targeted attacks um, by these threat actors. When considering using a service, how much weight does the jurisdiction in which it operates carry?
Fun story before we answer this. We've had like 3 or 4 new users on the forum in the last week, all named Danny. So I just found that
Interesting.
interesting. Um, yeah, but then one said, "No, no, it's not me. I swear." Um, I'll take this one first. I actually really don't follow this at all anymore. I haven't seen reason to think that the 5.9 or 14 eyes really impacts individual services at all. What I do follow is the kind of laws and that each individual country can have. So, for example, trying to have a privacy service in the U.S. versus having one in Estonia is going to have, just because I'm more familiar with Estonia, of all the countries outside the US, it's going to have different things that the countries can do when it comes to requiring them to hand over certain information during a law enforcement request. This is actually the debates that we're seeing right now between Proton and Tuda, between what can Switzerland compel them to hand over versus Germany, because they're based out of 2 different countries. And both of them say
Mhm.
that they're in very private countries that respect the company's rights to not have to collect certain data about their customers. Some countries are notoriously kind of bad for this, and I would say like countries that come to mind are obviously more some of the more. Uh, Actually, the U.S. I don't think is fantastic for this, so I'd say the U.S. is on that list of countries that can compel companies to do some naughty things. I've seen some things about Russia, China, of course, and India is also not super strong in this realm either. So I personally like to avoid services, not avoid, it's just like to be aware that a service that's based out of the US could be compelled to do certain things that other countries don't. But even that is dependent on what you're looking for and what you're trying to protect against. I don't know if you do something different.
No, I definitely agree. I don't have too much to add, really. It's definitely like more important to weigh that kind of legislation in each country rather than like focus on these kind of things. The only other thing I'd point out is that like everything that we know about these surveillance alliances is super old information, and we can't even like really assume that any of it's current or that new alliances like don't already exist in secret that we don't even know about. So the Five Eyes thing is it's one of those things where it's like it's maybe useful to think about as a very minor factor in the sense that you have evidence that these countries have collaborated in secret before, but you can't necessarily assume that that's still going on or that like that isn't going on with other countries and that kind of thing. And it's such a small risk, I think, compared to all of the stuff that you brought up that it's not a major determining factor in anything that I choose.
Right. Fully agreed. And it takes me back to actual threats versus hypothetical threats. You know, there already is an actual threat, and we see it all the time of services that are compelled to hand over data they don't want to hand over. And that's a much more likely thing for you to be impacted by some, I think, more generic fear of some dragnet thing going on in the background where what the same information is like it's the same issue, but in a much more vague, broad, mysterious way, I would say. Um,
Hmm.
because I haven't heard anyone actually come forward and describe what exactly this 5.9 14 ice things would necessarily look like or do. Like I assume there's a like, oh, they're like sending each other all the information they have about each other constantly about every user, every comp, but like I just haven't had. someone actually articulate what this looks like. And I feel like it's a lot of just speculation. So I'm not saying it's not real, I'm not saying it's not something to look at, but I'm not personally looking at it anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Next question is from Mohammed. Hey, Mr. Henry, which are the best ways to free up? Oh, okay. I thought this was an acronym. You just capitalized up. Free up large storage in Windows 11. Um, I don't know.
I think
Delete. Oh,
actually,
oh.
I don't know if it continues or not. The
Um,
formatting of this question is confusing.
yeah, I don't know if this is all one question now. I'll get back to what looks like a question, which is free up
Yeah.
storage in Windows 11. I mean, you can delete old programs you don't use, just delete files. That's pretty much it. Like, what else can you do? I guess you can, yeah, just delete old programs, delete old files. I don't know what else to recommend. Um,
Use cloud storage
yeah,
to find an encrypted provider.
yeah. Get an external hard drive if you don't want to use cloud storage. Back up some data to that. Upgrade your hard drive if you're running out of space.
Or get a NAS.
Or get a
Synology.
NAS. That's true. A NAS would be a good move too. I forgot about that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think if you are asking about these other things, it would be kind of the same. So,
Hmm.
unless those things are their own question, but it doesn't look like a question. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Diabolic asks, or well, first says, I hope we're having a lovely Saturday. And I think we are you?
I mean, it was kind
Thank
of a
you.
miserable wake up, but like now that I'm here, it's
A little
fine.
early, but
Yeah.
yeah.
When I called Jonah and he picked up, I go, Jonah, like super energetic. It's like just to wake me up.
Just trying to wake up.
Yeah.
What are our thoughts about Meta's threads supporting ActivityPub and federating with Mastodon and the rest of the Fediverse? Is it going to harm the privacy and security of users? Do you think it might have some positive aspects? We were just talking about this, but I think I was just talking about it with you. I don't think we talked about it in a video. Did you have any thoughts on this?
Well,
Otherwise, I can share.
before we get into it, for people who aren't on Mastodon, the technology that Mastodon's built on is called ActivityPub, which is a decentralized way for to be able to communicate. It's like a protocol, so people can communicate together. It doesn't matter if they're using Mastodon, if they're using a different decentralized service, but everything can kind of integrate. The way this looks like is on my end. PeerTube is a good example. PeerTube videos show up on Mastodon even though they're different platforms because they both use ActivityPub. Um, Meta has Threads now, which is the Twitter competitor, and it kind of supports ActivityPub. Like they're starting to. So you can now start to pull up Mastodon accounts from Threads without having a Mastodon account. And you can kind of engage
It's
with
the
them.
other way around.
Oh, it's thank
But
you.
you will be able to, but you can't yet.
Oh, so
Um,
what they've done
you
is
can
the
only
opposite.
you can follow threads. You can follow certain threads users from Mastodon right now. Only like uh the head of threads and like a couple other accounts.
Thank
But
you.
Mastodon interactions don't show up in threads yet. But eventually, you're correct. Yes, they will be like it'll go in both directions.
Got it. Um, yeah, I don't know how it would harm the privacy of users because theoretically, not directly, right? Because at the end of the day, anything that you publish on Mastodon is public information, and anyone can go in and take that, including Meta and
Hmm.
Facebook. I would say that I guess because Facebook is behind it, they might be able to collect more data about other users because of this, but that's not something they couldn't already be doing, for example. So like in
Yes.
theory, if they actually really gave a shit and there was a reason to collect every Mastodon post in existence, they could just be doing that right now. So I don't think this inherently puts anyone at risk, but I think people just don't like Meta getting involved with the Fediverse because it's Meta. I don't know if you have a different take.
No, I pretty much agree. I've been thinking about it a lot lately because it's one of those things that's really hotly debated on Mastodon
I
right
see.
now. And I run a Mastodon server, so it's something that I have to keep track of. But I really don't see, based on the way that ActivityPub works, it doesn't seem like any more of a threat to your privacy than posting publicly at all. Like you were saying, it's all unless your account's private. all of your stuff is going to be indexed by pretty much anyone. You have to accept that kind of thing. And I really only see it having um, a positive impact overall because I think that people on Mastodon and people who want a privacy respecting service will still be able to follow users on threads without having to interact with threads in any other capacity. Um, and the way that ActivityPub works is it's not like your server connects to threads and then a stream of every post on that server gets moved to threads. It works on like a user by user basis. So only the users that you follow on threads are going to come into your Mastodon account. Only users on threads that follow you are going to go to threads. And if you want to like block threads entirely on your end, then threads users won't be able to find you. If you want to like make your account private, they won't be able to see your posts, that kind of thing. So I definitely if this is something that you're concerned about, I just wouldn't rely on like blocking threads to be the answer to your privacy problems. The only actual solution here is to make your profile on Mastodon private or accept that your profile is going to be publicly indexed because it's available on the internet without logging in. That's just how uh, public social media profiles work. Um, And on the flip side, I think that connecting Mastodon to Threads is going to have positive privacy aspects because, like I said, it'll enable people to follow Threads users in a more privacy respecting manner. And I don't think a big argument that I see a lot um, being brought up is that like Threads is only creating this interaction in order to entice people to get over to Threads. Like they're going to do it, and then they're going to make Threads better, and then they're going to take it away. Like the kind of embrace, extend, extinguish method that we know Microsoft used, that we saw Google use with XMPP, where they had Google Talk and then they replaced it with Hangouts, that kind of thing. I don't think, and this is the part that's probably debatable, but I'd love to hear people's opinions on it. I don't think this is as big of a deal to the current Mastodon community um, than it would have been like 10, 20 years ago, because I think a lot of what drives people to Mastodon these days is the promises of like no algorithm, no big tech, more private, that kind of thing. Um, Whereas 10, 20 years ago, the main thing that people focused on were features. Like it was a lot of like techie people who wanted the best possible platform, and they moved in that that strategy worked well because people would just move to whatever was the best and most feature-filled platform at the time. And in that case, it was like Google Hangouts or whatever replaced Google Talk, that kind of thing. Um, Whereas nowadays, I think just because even if Threads gets like a million more features than Mastodon and cuts off activity pub support in like 5 years or something crazy like that, I don't think that it's going to entice people on Mastodon to switch because people on Mastodon are just already using it for completely different reasons. So I really don't see how it's going to impact the current Mastodon community at all. Um, I think the change will be handled just fine. Kind of went on a long rant. I don't know if you have anything to add about that, but
Right. Well,
that's what I
I,
have
I
to
think
say.
it's overall accurate and it's just unsettling. I think the biggest thing is people are just unsettled, myself included, by like not being able to figure out why Meta is doing something that's not just trying to exploit the entire world. Because
Right.
you're right, there is no one thing we can point to and say, well, Meta would get this from it. They'd get this from it. The only thing I can think of is they're actually going to get a lot of value because there already is a lot of people. There already are a lot of people active on Mastodon. And so it is kind of a cool selling point for people to join threads because then you're kind of it actually does really incentivize using threads because if you just have a threads account, not only do you get to interact with everybody there, but you also get to interact with everyone outside of there, and you have an Instagram account tied to it, so you get access to Instagram. It's almost like the decentralized universe, but through a centralized company where everything is kind of made simple for users. So I could see how it incentivizes threads really nicely. Not for me, but
Maybe. The Mastodon user base is very considerably smaller than Threads now.
right.
If anything, this is going to bring a lot more attention to Mastodon than it will bring to Threads,
That's
I
a
would
good
say.
point
I
too.
don't I definitely see it working more the other way around in my mind, but
Yeah.
I don't know. A
Uh,
last thing that I'll add is that because I do run a Mastodon service, this is something that I considered when they were first um, planning on rolling this out, and I wrote a blog post on the blog for that service about like why the server that I'm running is not going to defederate from threads and the privacy aspects of that. So if you want, I can link to that or something, but
yeah.
that's something that you could check out as well.
Yeah, you should respond to anything in this thread. I think that's good. During your
Otherwise, that's
spiel,
all I have to say.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
during your spiel, I went back and I hearted the comments we already did because I need to maintain my empathetic status on the platform, which apparently is a badge.
Oh, absolutely. I think only you can see it. I don't think it's public.
Oh, really? That's not a public badge?
I
You should
think so.
check.
I'm not sure.
You should check.
I'll check after the stream.
Okay. Because there's like an empathetic badge where if you give out a certain amount of likes and you receive a certain amount of likes, it's like, wow. But it's a lie. It's like you have to give out over 1,000 likes or something. Um,
Oh, that one. I thought you were referring to something else. That
oh,
one is a badge.
I thought that
I
was
thought you were talking
public.
about the, yeah, that is public.
Yeah, okay. Next question is from Smokescreen. Any tips for using Microsoft Office as privately as possible? They like only Office, but they prefer Microsoft Office, which is valid. And their university gives it for free, and are wondering if they obtain a standalone license, if that would be better in regards to limiting what's sent to Microsoft. And they have a second question. Um, just to tackle that, I personally don't see or understand the difference between getting your own license outside of the fact that maybe it's not shared by the university, but I don't know. I might even make the argument that the privacy policy through your university might be better than a standalone license, but I don't think either of them are going to be good. I'm just throwing out speculation. Actually, Jen might be able to speak to that a little bit more if that's even true. What I would recommend and what I'd say is anything that's school related should be in its own school account or its own school device or its own browser. I like to really compartmentalize those parts of my life so it's not all in the same place. So even if it is privacy invasive, it's just collecting information about your studies and that's it. That's personally what I like to do for work, personal life, school, anything like that. Just try to keep things separated as much as you can. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I completely agree. Compartmentalization is probably the best approach to this kind of thing. I don't think that there's going to be, with modern Microsoft products, it doesn't matter how you license it, they're all pretty much the same, and they're going to send the same like feedback and stuff to Microsoft no matter what you do. So, um, it's not going to make a big difference using the standalone Office or 365. Um,
Cool.
yeah.
Um, and they have a second question here, which is thoughts on Apple's privacy practices, as I'll be trying out MacBook/iCloud ADP this semester. ADP's Advanced Data Protection, which is Apple's end-to-end encryption for iCloud. Um, we actually just had a person make a post about this on our forum, and it was pretty thorough. It was pretty much asking like they're pretty much saying I'm embarrassed to consider a MacBook. It gets in the way of my ego. I like Linux. I want to keep using Linux, but it seems like there's a lot of real benefits to the Mac OS ecosystem right now. And I think there were some really good discussions there that were had that I think might give you some more context and nuance to this. But my short answer is it's not a terrible place to be right now, especially for if you're coming from if you're looking at the average person and how they interact with their devices, if you take what they're doing and you put them on an iPhone and a MacBook with iCloud's ADP, it's going to, in almost all accounts, be an improvement. So I think Apple just really raised the bar in terms of like offering decent privacy and security for the average person. And again, I'm not saying Apple's perfect. I'm not saying there's not issues with their implementations with some of this stuff, but it's actually really impressive. In fact, for the highest security threat models, Apple's kind of your best option right now, from what I've been able to tell, because there's no other operating system that's been proven to be able to fight off spyware, which is what Apple's lockdown mode has been proven to do now on several occasions. It's really impressive. Um, even during so there was an update to a recent story because Kaspersky does research on devices, and there was a story that came out I think about 6 months ago that they were actually infected with malware at the Kaspersky labs. They did a follow-up to that I think last week, which pretty much showed that these spyware attacks weren't just like, we're talking about Pegasus and how rare those are and how difficult those are to pull off. This takes that to a new extreme because they didn't just use Pegasus level spyware. They actually had information and reverse engineered Apple's chips. So this was like the most sophisticated targeted attack I think I have almost ever read about, and
Hmm.
lockdown mode still would have fought that off. Like, which is insane because it still relied on a PDF being sent, I believe, as part of the exploit chain, which they don't allow via iMessage. You can't receive a PDF in iMessage. So lockdown mode still would have prevented that from being pulled off, which is just insane to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read about. I saw that news. It sounded very cool, but I didn't look further into it and whether lockdown prevented it because it's been busy holiday week. But
Yeah.
that's super cool to hear.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. I mean, like it's also crazy because normally to achieve that level of security, people are talking about, okay, well, we need to get you a custom laptop, we need to think about cubes or, all this custom crap that you have to go through. With
Hmm.
lockdown mode, you just switch off a toggle and you still retain like probably 90% of the phone's features. It's pretty impressive. I'm so just excited about lockdown mode, and it's cool that they're still supporting it and still making improvements to it every update cycle. So, um,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would just say that. Well, I guess I don't have much to add. I just say the same thing that you can you can get more private solutions doing it yourself. But
right,
if you're thinking about like stuff out of the box, what you can do with Apple devices in one click is a lot. It's definitely a lot easier and raises the bar, like you said, for sure.
right. All right, next one, your court.
Let's see
I
here.
have a good answer to this, by the way.
All right, on to the next question from at I'm on a boat. If you got a new significant other who had zero privacy consciousness, what would be the first steps you would suggest to that person to help them improve their privacy on their phone and computer?
Do you want me
You,
to go,
you
or are
said
you
you had
gonna
an
go?
answer for that. Well, you said you had a great
I
answer
do have
for
a
it,
great
so.
answer. So I've had two exes now, where the first thing I did with them was get them on Signal and get them on Brave. And that already makes a big difference because it means all our communication together is safe and secure. It means that they have essentially the same browser experience, but it's a little bit more private and secure as well. I would say a lot more because it's going to block ads, it's going to block all these trackers and stuff on the websites, and Brave does do some nice things for you there as well. And so I hope that I would guess that neither of them probably use Signal anymore, or if they do, it's because they just don't have many contacts on there. But I think everyone liked Signal. I'd be surprised if either of them moved back to Chrome from Brave though. I don't know. I'm not keeping up with their tech lives after we're through, but that's my guess. And so that's normally what I start with most people is a messenger and then a browser swap. Oh, and one of them, they were on a Samsung device. That was their phone. I think it was a Samsung S9 or something like that. I don't remember the model. I don't keep up with Samsung phones, but they were looking to upgrade and they asked for a good phone to upgrade to, and I pretty much said I'd probably go for either a Pixel or an iPhone, and eventually they moved to an iPhone. So I think that's a massive improvement coming from a Samsung device. So
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, that's all super good stuff. The main thing I would add is what I definitely do with like pretty much anyone I can convince is to get them to use an ad blocker because a lot of people surprisingly
Mm-hmm.
don't out of the box. And Brave would do that for sure, but like even if they don't want to switch browsers, getting uBlock Origin installed makes a huge difference in the in the tracker privacy space on the internet. And it's crazy like browsing the internet without it, but so many people do.
Yeah, it's so
That's
weird
a
when
huge
you
privacy
end up on a
improvement.
browser without one again, and you're going, "What? This is how people experience the internet?"
I
Unironically.
know. How do you read it? I was literally just trying to read a news article. In incognito mode, I didn't have uBlock enabled in that. Now I do because I learned my lesson. But the news article was like in the bottom, like in the middle fifth of the screen, two giant banners, one above, one below it. It was ridiculous.
Right. It's just unacceptable. Unacceptable. I think they updated the profile photo while we were answering it, so
Oh, really?
they are on a boat. Valeria just said Happy New Year's, and Happy New Year's to you too. It's nice to get that. Yeah, it is almost New Year's.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's crazy.
Next
Let's
question.
see.
Um,
Yeah, at Soteria asks, Oh, it just updated. Uh, multi-year YouTube subscriber. They are recently thinking about getting the Calyx membership unlimited data plan. Would I need to get separate talk and text only plan for my phone? And would the cheapest tier of the service be good enough? Do that question first, then they have a second one after.
Yeah, so I
You have a lot of experience with Calyx, though.
yeah, I used the Calyx Unlimited hotspot. I had the 5G model. I don't know what their most up-to-date models are, so I actually don't know what the cheapest tier is at the moment. But back in the day, they had the lower end ones that were 4G, and then they had the nice 5G one, the big rectangular one. I actually didn't have home internet for like a year and a half. I got rid of my home internet and I only used the hotspot for all of my internet needs. And it worked fine. It actually, I was super happy with the download speeds. Again, it depends where you live. It's a big, big, big thing. You know, if you live somewhere where you're not going to get good service, then you probably shouldn't do this. But it was a great experience. It was cool to have like the same internet everywhere I went. It was awesome to never have to connect to Wi-Fi hotspots anywhere. It was just a really nice workflow. I was really happy with the hotspot. I ended up sending it to Nate, and Nate's now been using that hotspot because Calyx lets you transfer the membership. So that's pretty awesome too. So Nate's been using it, and he's been saying really good things because Nate from the New Oil on surveillance support, I should say. And he goes out to like remote places, is what he said. He said this publicly. I don't think I'm saying anything he didn't already share. But he goes out to remote places, and the phone hotspot doesn't work super well. But the dedicated hotspot from Calyx does still get some service, and it's still able to work pretty well. So, yeah, big fan. Can't recommend it enough. But it's also like pretty cheap too. But you have to pay up front, so it's kind of your call on your finances. But I had a good experience with it. And you would need a
Cool.
separate talk and text only plan for your phone. Very side tangent here. I was trying at one point to not have to have a text and phone plan at all. AKA, I was trying to have the Calyx hotspot be my cell plan, and then I only use VoIP services essentially on each device. There was a few reasons why I wanted to do this, but it was too extreme of a goal for me. I tried, but it would have been really hard. Though I think
What was challenging about it?
not having a fallback phone number option. Um,
Hmm.
but I think now I would have an easier time with it because I essentially completely phased out my phone number. I don't use the phone number on my phone for anything. It's non-existent essentially. I don't use it for SMS. I don't receive anything to it. I actually turned off all the SMS functionality for that phone. I don't receive phone calls to it. So I think now I can actually do that workflow where I don't have to have an actual phone number. But
Cool. And then their second question was, would we recommend either Graphene or Calyx OS for a Pixel device? They have a Pixel 4 XL and they've gone through both.
well,
I don't know what's the current support for the Pixel 4 XL. I don't actually know.
I don't think that's still getting security updates. In fact, I almost know
Right.
it's not. So
I'm
only
pretty sure it's not, so that's why I'm wondering like what the custom ROM support is, I guess I should ask. Are either of them keeping up with it still?
my guess is Calyx would still be trying to keep up with it, but I'd have to look. Just Calyx tends to support things a little bit longer past the security update lifecycle, so it's not
Yeah.
still creating firmware updates for these devices, but Calyx goes it typically a little bit longer on the longevity side of things. Um, but even Calyx will eventually phase it out, and then it'd probably move over to
Yeah, they might
Lineage.
both still be at the moment, but I wouldn't count on that for long,
So
with
they
the 4.
actually this person same profile photo just left a comment on YouTube saying they both still update for me.
Yeah,
So
got it.
so
Yeah,
let's just
I
assume
think they're
they are
both in
getting
like
updates.
limited support. Um, would I recommend either one? I mean, yeah, I would. It depends on your threat model, which one is what's great for you. I can't really like Android custom ROMs are really difficult for me because it's not like there isn't one generic answer that you can give to everybody.
Right.
Like if you wanted to say like what's the best off-the-shelf phone hardware and software, I can tell people to buy an iPhone, for example. But when it comes to Android devices, there's so much it's a more complex space at the moment. There's no like clear market winner when it comes to all this stuff. So it really depends on like what you're doing, your preferences. I mean, between those two options, even like the difference between Google Play services and micro G, for example, could be really big. There's a really good
Oh,
ROM
there is.
comparison that was posted on our forum, and is now like its own separate website, that we could link to. But I would recommend checking that out, if you want like an overview of all the different options that are available to you, and go from there probably.
Right. That's a good chart. I was
I
really
don't know if you
happy
have
with
anything
that
to add.
post. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Next question. Oh my God, we're getting more. Wait, I didn't like this one. Gotta go back. Stop. Everyone stop what they're doing. I need to heart this comment. Did I get the other one? I didn't. I didn't even like the person who wished us a happy new year. I'm sorry, Vera.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. I don't know why this scrolls so terribly. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. This morning, I asked Brave on Mastodon if they had plans to migrate from Chromium to a Firefox base, and one user told me he uses Firefox because he does not agree to pay Brendan, the founder of Brave, because of his moral position. I get that point, but Brave is a good browser. How does the community manage their thinking, and still use Brave? Well, this is like not a privacy specific issue. This is a broader issue than that, which is, do you engage with services that you disagree with some of the ethics behind the services? And I can't
Mhm.
answer that for you. Personally, I take this pretty extreme in my personal life. Like, I have a whole blacklist of places I just don't shop at all because I don't agree with their ethics and I don't agree with what they do, and it's dependent on a lot of things that I value in my life. And I think that in this massive world, the best thing you can do is vote with your dollar. I would actually argue in a capitalist society, voting with your dollar is probably more effective than actually voting. So that's my hot take. But also, I do use Brave, and I don't agree with a lot of what Brendan believes. But that's because I don't really use any of the features in Brave that even give them money. I don't use the BAT rewards. So, as far as I'm concerned, there is no direct financial gain that Brave is getting from me, outside of market share. So, there is some market share that's been given to Brave, and I am one of the active users. So, I guess that does speak to something. But kind of your call. I also split up a lot of my web traffic nowadays, not just through Brave, but I use pretty much most privacy browsers for one thing or another at this point. And I made a video on that, on why like picking a browser and fanboying over one browser is kind of really silly when there's so many great options. So yeah,
Yeah.
how about you? And actually, I'm gonna
Um,
close the thread. I'm sorry that you're replying, but I also don't want to ignore the people in the live stream comments. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this so that we can um, finish these. Otherwise, it's just going to go infinitely, which is what happened, I think, 2 months ago.
Gotta cut it off somewhere.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely very similar. That is the reason that I personally don't use Brave myself, and I probably won't use Brave. But like, if you look at it from a purely technical perspective, it's hard to find like reasons that like you should recommend against Brave just from purely that privacy perspective. For me, it's just a matter of like there's nothing in Brave that's interesting to me that you can't also replicate in Firefox. So that's the reason that I don't really have an issue using Firefox on most of my devices. And I also use Mulvet browser. And on my Mac, I've been using Arc, but I don't know how I feel about that yet still from a privacy perspective. So I don't know if I'd recommend it. But the point is I use a lot of different browsers, and um, it it really is up to you, like Henry was saying. I don't have much to add beyond what you excellently pointed out.
Right. It's a personal ethical thing. And I think it's why I
Hmm.
do a lot of the things I do in my life. Even though they come at a great inconvenience, I'm a kind of person that like can't really turn a blind eye to a lot of things. I do a little bit with Brave, as I already said, but I'd say that's almost one of my exceptions that I make. Um, but it makes my life really annoying sometimes. My friends get irritated with
Uh-huh.
me sometimes because of some of the boundaries I've established for certain things. Also, I just wanted to go back and welcome Soteria because it's their first post in the community. So thank you for joining. And
Huh,
also,
nice.
thank you, PhotoVeg, the person who just left that Mastodon comment. I think we might have missed a couple people higher up. So if you were new, welcome aboard to the community. And for anyone listening, if you have a simple login account, you can just simple sign on with like you just click login with simple login and you have an account. That's all you got to do. We have lots of other SSO providers, or you can just do an email and password like a normal human. um,
Mhm.
Also, Chaos, you haven't been active in a while. I don't know what that's about, but we're happy to see you back after 4 months. I want to ask how I move family and friends over to more privacy stuff. I'll use VPN as example. How would I answer this question when friends and family use Nord or Surfshark? How would I justify moving to Windscribe, Proton, blah blah blah? When Nord or Surfshark costs 50 for 2 years. The question is not just VPNs. Was just an easy example to explain. Knowing you, because like I see your comments all the time. I feel like you got your family on Nord or Surfshark, and now you want them to switch. But that's my theory. Um, but I don't know. It really just depends. If they already paid for the VPN, I don't think we do not recommend Nord or Surfshark. Really, I mean, you can see at our VPN chart.
Yeah.
We don't recommend them, but I still don't necessarily think personally if I had them, I wouldn't like not finish the subscriptions for them either, personally. Like, I still think you're going to get a lot of the benefits a VPN provides, regardless if it comes from Nord or these other more private providers. But that's just me. I just wouldn't dedicate money to that. But I objectively think that the other providers are better. They're more privacy respecting. They take security a little bit more seriously. They don't have as many scandals. They're not run by these conglomerate companies that invest millions of dollars into marketing. So they are better. It's just I wouldn't be focusing on that. And I think that your question does say it's not just about VPNs. Um, I don't actually know how this is different from just the question of how do I convince my family and friends to move to more privacy respecting services. If it's not the VPN example you gave, how do I get them away from SMS and onto Signal or even iMessage or something that at least has end-to-end encryption? I think it's kind of the same question as people ask is how do I get people to use privacy respecting services? And I would say what I always say to that is like ask what they need, not actually directly, like in your own head, ask what they need and what they want and how a privacy service can actually better fulfill that and make it personalized. JohnnyO was
Yeah.
talking earlier about ad blockers and how he has people install uBlock Origin. That right there, it's like, hey, you should use an ad blocker, and they don't even know that they're actually doing something for their privacy. Is a good example of like tricking people in a way, in a good way, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that there's a lot of privacy services where you can find that not only are they private, but the functionality is actually better than the alternatives as well in a lot of situations. There's definitely some cases where they're worse for sure. It's a trade-off, but I think you can look at a lot of these services and find really good features. Signal's a great example where that's like just a good messenger in general. If you ignored all the privacy and security stuff, it's still very comparable to like mainstream messengers like WhatsApp or Telegram, that kind of thing. And it has an added bonus of being extremely secure and very private. So there's a lot of like services that you can do. Proton, I think, is a good example. You can debate about the ecosystem all you want, but the fact that that ecosystem exists and it kind of bundles up a bunch of different services under one relatively low price, I think, makes it a pretty good deal. As far as like if you're trying to get them to use Proton VPN, maybe there's other Proton services that they'd be interested in using, for example, as well. But yeah, my approach to this thing has always been just kind of like I can only tell you what my recommendations are and put like advice out there based on my experience, but it's up to other people to decide whether they want to take that advice or not. And if they don't, you can't. I don't stay up all night thinking about all the people who are not using privacy services in the world because it's like I'm not gonna it's not gonna work to get every single one onto them, unfortunately.
Right. Also, Benjo is chaos to my knowledge, and on the YouTube live stream they said it was a
On
good
YouTube.
theory because I had the theory that they are the ones that got their family onto the services, and they said it was actually a MrBeast sponsor and PewDiePie. So my theory is not true.
Yeah,
We got another
those
Happy New
those
Year's.
YouTube sponsors, they'll get you.
They will get you. Happy New Year's to you too. Another Happy New Year's. Gave it a like. And also another Happy New Year's. But there's another question from Chaos. What does plans look like in 2024? Any interview series? I have an interview with someone. So we have two Nextcloud interviews that I still need to edit and publish. And aside from those, I have an interview lined up in the next couple weeks with someone I've already interviewed before. So it's my oh, I actually have done a repeat interview before with Abine DeleteMe, their CEO Rob Shavel, I believe. Um, But next week I'll be recording an interview with someone I've done an interview with before, and there's someone that I've like met in person, and we're pretty close. So it should be I think one of the most entertaining interviews because it'll be pretty like personal, and we can talk very freely amongst each other, but we can still get technical. I think it's going to be a good interview. And aside from that, just finishing up Go Incognito, maintaining surveillance report, and getting caught up on content. And yeah, nothing too crazy planned right now. I'd like to just feel on top of the things we already have.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Before we move on from the forum stuff, I just left a reply on the forum with some links that I had brought up earlier to various questions. So I mentioned who asked them if they are interested in following that up. But I linked to like news about Ubuntu and Asahi, that link about threads, then the Android ROM comparison table that we were talking about earlier. So if
Right.
anyone's interested, you can find it at the bottom of that post.
Right. And for people who are watching the live stream, you can click the link in a description or in the live stream chat, and you'll be directed to the thread. At the bottom of the thread is Jonah's comment he just left, but you're going to see um, pretty much his whole thread. I'm showing it right now on the live stream, but yeah. And then we have comments. How far are we? We're an hour in. Okay, not too bad. Let's see. Tim. All right, let me move this a little bit so it is right. So the way we do these is we kind of just go through and see the ones that we can answer. So if you see a comment, Jonah, just say it. Or if I see one,
All
I'll say
right,
it too. I did see
I'll
the
start
Bitwarden
looking through.
never autofills on any of their phones. Does it work better with certain browsers? Is there something better? We've actually talked about this before. How autofill? It sounds. We're both gonna guess you're on Android because autofill on Android is just awful. Like it is the worst thing I've ever had to use ever. Um, you explained why because there's like three different ways to autofill and try to recognize the field instead of just having one unified way like Apple does it. And I
Yeah.
think Bitwarden tries its best, but it should be better across different browsers. But I never tried this, so
It definitely does make a difference depending on the browser you use. Which browser is the best for it? I don't remember. When I was using Firefox on Android, I don't think I had, well, I won't say I won't had any issues, but I think it did somewhat work. So give that a try. It depends on what you use. Otherwise, yeah, no, no great advice. It's super annoying on Android.
yeah, I don't know how they haven't figured. It's one of those things that, like, even as someone who likes Android, it's a joke, and I can't believe it hasn't been figured out yet because it's such a basic functionality. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I at a loss for words for that one, to be honest. It's not Bitwarden's fault though, by the way. Not directly. I think that some of these password managers have like slightly better ways of implementing it, but it's at its core, I'd blame this on Android, not on the password managers.
Yeah.
Um, how to receive SMS without phone possible? Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. How I essentially did that. In the U.S., there are more options. How about less fortunate? Yeah, the problem is when you leave the U.S., a lot of countries restrict VoIP services, but even the ones that KYC, like you can still get VoIP services in other countries. It's just a lot of them will have to verify certain information about you. So if you really still need a way to do it and privacy isn't a consideration, you might still be able to make that happen. Germany's
Right.
a good example. I was working with a client. So again, this is based on memory, but I'm pretty certain this is how it works. If anyone's German, please confirm. But I'm pretty sure in Germany they don't actually allow very many services without KYCing yourself. You have to KYC yourself for a SIM card in Germany. And I believe that client still did it because they wanted the online service. I'm not actually going to continue on this one because I'm not super confident that my memory is correct. But that one, just an example, I'd guess, of someone who could benefit from this. It was a bad answer.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. It's probably easier to get phone numbers from certain countries than other, but if you need a phone number in from your country, yeah, it can be challenging depending on where you are, and that's just how that's just how it works. It's like how there's no good payment masking services in the EU either, for example, because EU laws are so much more restrictive than the US. It's just an annoying side effect of different countries.
Yeah, but who needs payment masking services in the EU when you have mobile coin? It's
It's so true. Best payment service in the
that
world.
video is so fun to make, and
Yeah.
I rewatched it since we made it, and it's one of, I think, the funniest videos that we've ever published. It wasn't meant to be funny. Like, we unironically got on there, and Jonah and I didn't do any prep work. All I did was I set up Jonah and I said, all right, make sure that you have your screen recording going, make sure your mic's on, and I'll have my desktop going and my phone on. We don't know where this is going to go. I didn't even know if you could just directly pay for it in the app. Jonah said that I don't think you can do that, but I was like, oh, well, maybe you can. And then so we just started from scratch, and that whole video
Yeah.
ended up happening because of it. It was very frustrating, but people seem to find it funny. So
I was pretty sure it was going to go badly, but I did really think that we'd eventually be able to find it
me
somewhere
too.
and like be able to do it. And I thought that we were going to see how it looked in like how do you send money to people? I don't even know how you do it in Signal. So I thought it would be kind of cool just to see it and be like, you're never going to do this, but this is what it looks like. But we couldn't even do that.
Right. I thought we would get it. I thought there would just be a swap service. I thought it'd be that easy. And it
Right.
wasn't because, all the swap services were all compromised because of something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
who knows?
It's so
Typical
ridiculous.
crypto thing.
Oh, like there were so, you know what? I will say, because this speaks to how comments are always louder than the public. Because we did get, I think, 5 or 6 crypto bros who were really upset. By the way, Techlore, you can send Techlore Monero. You can send surveillance report Monero. We used to support Bitcoin, but we stopped because of the privacy consideration. So we're not necessarily anti-crypto. But there were so many crypto bros who got on their platform and they're like, I can't believe that you said this is stupid. And it's like, how is this not stupid? This is a service that like literally doesn't work. Like we're trying to use this cryptocurrency and we can't use it. How is that not stupid? If it's a great product, it should let us use it, you know? And we're not idiots either. We've used cryptocurrencies in the past, and like we're trying to also put out content for the normal person. But where I was going with this is the like ratio for that video was crazy high. So I do think that like those comments are going to be loud, but I think most people found it enjoyable.
Yeah. I really wish that Signal supported Monero like natively. That'd be
Right.
super cool.
Especially since MobileCoin was based on Monero, to my knowledge.
Yeah,
So
I think so.
crazy.
Not really a question, but Hannah just said that they're on the forum a lot and learning, but they're not logging in as much. But it's fine because the content is the same. They just don't have to log in. And that's so true. The forum works so well. It doesn't pressure you to log in or anything. It just, you can read anything on the forum, and learn all sorts of good stuff without having to interact with it. Or you can join and ask questions and get advice. All that stuff is good too.
Right. Also, okay, we talk about the forum a lot, but it's actually a big deal because so right now we're going through like the hiring process for finding a clips editor. And so that kind of reminded me of when I was looking for a role to be filled for like a community admin slash manager. And I never interviewed Jonah because I already knew Jonah because he was working at the time with Privacy Tools. Now he's at Privacy Guides. And one of the questions I asked him is like, what would you change like in our communities right now? And Jonah suggested, well, I think a forum would be awesome because then you can access information and it stays permanent and we don't have a million people talking about the same million topics all the time and just repeating themselves over and over. So the forum is a result of Jonah and his idea to bring that along, and it's cool to see that that is actually like what's going on because I've actually looked up privacy questions on a search engine and our forum pops up. So like it actually is helpful. So I love to see that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, what was the situation before? We just have people debating browsers every single day
Yeah,
in
on
Discord.
Discord. Oh, Discord and Matrix both. Holy crap. It was like, hey, what do you guys recommend for a browser? And then people talk about it for 2 hours, and then 3 hours later, you don't see that conversation anymore. It's like, hey, what's you guys' favorite browser? And then the same people debate it over and over, and I'm going, oh my God, this is insane.
Yeah. And
Um,
just talk about this one time. How about it
right,
works so well.
right. Um, I did bump my audio up. I did see your comment, by the way, while we were recording, and I did bump my audio up a little bit, so it should be better.
I was
Um,
gonna point that out. A classic Henry problem.
right. Actually, it's a classic Jonah problem because you're so overpowering and you try to
Yeah,
take over
right.
every conversation with your
Nobody
loud
has ever said that
voice.
about me in my entire life.
Well, yeah, it's the
That's
first
not
time.
true.
This is a you problem, not a me problem. It's you, not me. Um, I don't have any Brazil specific information on this. I would say that in terms of how to erase your data online, it's going to be pretty similar, unless you're looking for a specific service to do that. You know, you're going to have to see where your information is posted, figure out where it came from. You're going to have to delete certain accounts that expose information, make things private where you can. So there is a lot. I believe Go Incognito 2.4 is the kind of guide that I have to erasing your online identity. And a lot of that should still be completely accurate to this day. It's a pretty timeless video, I feel. And so if you want to get started guide, that's kind of where to start. And it's a lot. It's somehow packed like a lot into like a 10-minute video or something. So that's where I would start.
Mhm. Somebody asked about Gilded being owned by Roblox. I didn't actually know they were owned by Roblox, but um,
I,
I don't really see the point in using Gilded over Discord or any of these centralized messaging platforms. It doesn't seem to. They don't have like any kind of encryption or anything special, right? It's just another Discord clone. I don't know if you're
yeah,
familiar with it at
I
all.
never used it, but Tomo, who's one of our most active Discord members, talked about
Right.
it when it first came out. But I think that they had some issues with it, and they did. I think they're the reason why I know that it's owned by Roblox. But I don't know. I don't have any experience with it.
Maybe I'm thinking of. I think there was one that like purported to be more private and open source. Maybe it was Revolt Chat. Is that a thing?
Revolt
I don't
Chat
remember.
is the Discord clone as well, um, and
Similar.
I would say like
Yeah, that one is more focused on privacy, isn't it?
right,
Maybe.
it's open source, it's focused on privacy, but I would say like it depends what you mean by focused on privacy because I still don't think it's end-to-end encrypted. I just think it's a transfer of
Yeah.
trust mostly. And last
I
time I
just looked
used
at
it,
this said it's coming soon.
but I used to we even set up a whole like test. Let me make sure I'm
Hmm.
thinking of the right thing because we even set up a whole test uh, server on that, like a Techlore server, and I posted it in our Discord
Yeah,
so that we could.
Revolt is the one that's open source, and they've been saying end-to-end encryption is coming soon for basically since it came out, and it hasn't yet.
Yeah, this is the one.
But since it's still a centralized service, it's the kind of thing where, they're just building a Discord alternative, and you can host it yourself, but then you lose all the benefits of like having a single Revolt account, that kind of thing. It would just be a big mess, which is I doubt anybody's hosting Revolt themselves for their community, but maybe I'm wrong if anyone knows of one.
Right. I did
It
like
wouldn't
it
make a lot
for
of
the
sense to
record
me.
because we tested Revolt
Yeah.
and I was exploring it as a Discord alternative because in my perfect world, we would only use the forum because I think that's what provides the most value. And our forum actually does have a chat now. So you can do kind of the
Yep.
quick, hey, how's everyone doing today type of conversations. So we actually don't really need Discord anymore, but we have such a big community. And so I was thinking, well, what is an alternative to Discord that's not Matrix? Because we have a lot of reasons why we stopped using Matrix. And Revolt came up, and we tried Revolt, and it's got a great interface. So, like for the record, I really liked Revolt. It was really clean to use. I don't have too many bad things to say about it, but there was no 2FA when I was using it at the time, which I wasn't a fan of. I don't know if they finally fixed that, but um, it just didn't quite feel ready enough for prime time, I feel. Last time I used it, this was like a year ago, so I'm sure things have changed.
Yeah.
We already answered your question, I think, Soteria. Calix Internet membership, would you need to get a separate text plan? I believe I should have got that on the forum.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, you did a top 10 security and privacy tools and apps that was very helpful. What are your current top 10 tips now? Oh, I can't name off top 10
Oh.
tips off the top of my head, but that was a fun video and it performed really well. And I really would like to remake that video, actually. That's a good video to try to remake because it's been a while. That performed
That'd
really
be
well.
super cool.
Also, your second question, we already kind of addressed that earlier. I would say go to the forum, and Jonah linked a chart that you can use to compare ROMs.
Thoughts on PicoCrypt? We looked at that. I looked at that for privacy guides, so I could just say it looks cool for like encrypting individual files if you want. It's not like a super. It's a very simple tool. Let me just look up and make sure I'm thinking of the right thing. Yeah, it's just a very simple tool for encrypting like a file to send to somebody. And it seems to work well from what I've seen everyone say about it. So if you're encrypting like a lot of files or like a whole drive, there's obviously better tools for that, like CryptoMator, probably for like encrypting cloud files, or VeraCrypt for encrypting an external hard drive. But yeah, if
Right.
you want to use it, that should be fine.
I never heard of it, so um, yeah, Jonah's answer is the answer that we have. Someone asked about they're using Gboard, which is Google's keyboard for Android, and they disabled its data and Wi-Fi use permission from the app settings, and they're using a firewall. Is it safe? Personally, I think yes. This is actually what I was doing when I was running Calyx most recently. Is I installed Gboard, and Calyx has Datura firewall, and it allows you to turn off internet for specific applications, and I feel completely comfortable with that. And I was able to benefit from a lot of the features of Gboard without the internet permission. So I think it's safe. Is it the safest thing to do? Probably not, but I actually can't think of what the issue would be personally, unless you
Yeah,
don't trust it.
something to think about. Probably less of an issue or not an issue on Calyx with micro G, but on services or on Google Play services, platforms, and with other Google apps installed on your phone, there are ways that like Gboard could kind of exfiltrate your data to other Google apps or to Google Play services and then connect to the internet. I don't know how Gboard works. I've never looked into it specifically, so it's it might not be completely safe to just block off that one app if there are other if
That's a good
there's like
point.
an underlying Play services framework that it can connect to. But if you're on a de-Googled phone, I suspect it's probably fine.
That's a good point. I just assumed they were talking about a de-Googled phone, and that was my assumption because they mentioned the firewall, but that's not actually inherently true. So that's a good point for sure. I didn't even think about them not being on a de-Googled phone, to be honest. I wish Filipinos cared about online privacy seriously. I mean,
I think some do.
yeah, some do. At least
I
one sounds
can't,
like.
yeah.
And I'm sure. I mean, now I'm wondering. Let me pull up my our stats.
You can say that about like pretty much almost any group, though. I think there's a lot of it'd be nice if a lot of people took online privacy more seriously, and that's just how the world is, I think.
Right. I mean, I wish Americans cared about privacy.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
let me here. You can keep going through. I'm gonna see if I can find like country demographics on from YouTube. If I think it's a thing. Top
Which
geographies.
phone is worth buying to be with security and privacy without the Google platform? We kind of addressed that earlier. I'll just retouch on it really quick. Off the shelf, there's not a lot of super great options. I'm really like just frustrated with the mobile phone marketplace in general. If you're just concerned about the Google platform, obviously the iPhone is always an option. Otherwise, with Android, you're probably looking at installing a custom ROM that works best for you. So if that's the case, Google Pixel is definitely the most like compatible with other custom ROMs. You're gonna have the most options if you get that phone. Um, but yeah, it's a lot trickier. If you're just looking for something out of the box, I don't really have any great recommendations for you. The whole mobile phone industry is not in a good place in my opinion right now.
You ready for some surprising stats?
Yeah.
So, according to YouTube, I set it to the last year. So, these are just YouTube stats. Again, we post content on other platforms. And if I could not collect this data, somehow I would. But it's YouTube stats that they give me. Um, the Philippines are the eighth most watched country for Techlore. So,
Nice.
Yeah, in the last year, they made up about almost 2% of our viewers. So almost 2% of our viewers are Filipino. So unless you're watching a lot of Techlore, I think there are other ones.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I like this comment. It just says Henry. It's like five exclamation marks. Yeah.
Oh man, my chat just jumped all around
Yeah, it
crazily,
does
and
that.
now I
It's
lost my spot.
so obnoxious. So I think
YouTube is so great.
someone gave me a tip once in the live chat where it says if you toggle timestamps, it doesn't do that. I don't know if that's true though. I don't know if that's true.
Interesting, huh?
I just remember someone said that during the stream once, and I was like, I don't know if that's real. And I did it, and I forgot about it until now, and I think that was over a year ago. So I just toggled them to see what would happen. I haven't used Ice Raven, so I don't have much of an opinion.
I was just gonna bring that up. I probably wouldn't use it if it updates a lot slower than Mozilla Firefox. If you're looking for a good Firefox-based browser on Android, you should check out Mull browser from the developer of Divest OS. It's available on F-Droid. It's super good.
Right.
Um,
It's actually on our resources too.
yeah, so check that out.
Techlore.tech/resources if you want to see mobile browsers. Tell us your opinion about Lineage OS. I like Lineage. I like most custom ROMs. Most. And with Lineage, it's cool because they support so many devices, and a lot of other ROMs are based on Lineage, and so it definitely has a place, and I think it's really good. I see a lot of Lineage hate that I think is just ridiculous because they're doing so much good work for the community. So, Lineage haters,
Yeah,
downvote you.
I would definitely when you're using Lineage, I would just make sure that you're using like an officially supported device.
Hmm.
It's really hard to like ensure there's good quality among like the unofficial forks of it that you'll see on different forums and stuff. So look for official Lineage support. And then yeah, you'll see a lot of arguments for and against it. It's very hotly debated in the community. But it really like all things, it depends on your threat model. And having a de-Googled Android ROM like Lineage OS is going to be a privacy benefit over the Android ROM that your phone comes with. So if it comes with Google Play services. So it's a good option to consider in the comparison.
Right, and I think
And you can look at that chart that we linked for more information too.
right. I
Sorry, what were you
also
adding?
I also think that something that gets lost with Lineage because everyone goes, yeah, but it's missing these security features, and it's like, yeah, like, no one's denying that. That's why it doesn't mean it's immediately dismissed, but at the end of the day, some of these really old devices are not getting security updates anymore from the official manufacturer, but they can still get software updates from Lineage, and so there actually are some benefits, and it's a way to extend the life of some of these old devices. In some ways, it makes the device more secure because it's still going to get some security updates through the software, at least not firmware. But I think there's a place for Lineage, and I like Lineage. So, uh,
Can you suggest another phone provider besides T-Mobile? Since starting in 2024, T-Mobile will be tracking all text messages. I haven't heard anything about that. Have you? I just wanted to
no, I
ask you.
would just assume that's always been happening.
Right, that's one thing. I definitely have to look into that, but
Yeah, I don't know what they're
text
referencing.
messages are not encrypted, so um yeah, if you post on the forum maybe a link to what you're referring to, if there's like a news article about something about T-Mobile, we could maybe look into it more, but
Right. And either way, actually, hot take, it doesn't matter if they start tracking all your text messages because A, they should have already been doing
right.
that, but B, you should already not be using SMS. So, like,
R- Yeah.
you should be using an end-to-end encrypted messenger. It doesn't have to be Signal, but just anything, even WhatsApp, I would argue is better than SMS for everything. So, personally, I'd rather be using WhatsApp than SMS, but that's just me. And I
I
don't have a
wouldn't, but
WhatsApp account, for the record. But if those were my only two options, I would take WhatsApp.
yeah, that's a good debate. Somebody brought that up on the privacy guides forum, and I was um I ended up with the conclusion that I would prefer SMS for a variety of reasons. I could get into that,
Interesting.
but yeah. but that's a whole nother discussion. We don't have
Yeah,
to
no,
get
that's
into
a good
it.
debate though, like WhatsApp versus SMS, because they're gonna have very different issues. That's why it's such a good debate. Um,
Right, that's the main problem. It's like apples and oranges comparison, really.
right. Well, why not both? You
But
know, like I like apples and oranges. Someone asked about immutable Fedora and Silverblue, or the one oh you okay? So you texted me on Signal. Was it last night or the previous night? I think it was last night.
no, it was like 2 nights ago, I think.
Okay, 2 nights
I
ago.
don't think I was installing Linux, but yeah, I just got my laptop out. I installed Fedora Kinoite. I don't know how to say it. I've only ever read it on my second laptop, and I'm trying it out. Because I've only used Silverblue before, and I've only really used GNOME, and I was like, maybe KDE Plasma is actually good. I don't actually know. I've been told that it might not be, but
From my audio
so
messages that I
far,
sent you.
yeah, I've been told by Henry that it is not good, but
That's not what I
I'm
said
gonna
for the
see.
record, but I'll clear my stance up after you're done.
Um, but yeah, so far it seems to be good. I haven't really used it a lot, but I'm going to be testing it out more myself, so I'll see. I do like I guess your original question was what are our opinions on immutable Fedora distros in general, and I like them quite a lot. I think they're really great. It's a different workflow, especially if like already used to running Linux in a certain way. You have to change your mindset when it comes to like installing apps and that kind of thing, but it's a huge improvement, and I think it's really the future of operating of desktop operating systems, in
Right.
my opinion.
Agreed. They're super cool. Um, I would love to be using Silverblue, but it doesn't work with my workflow right now. But it seems just fantastic. Um, and what I said about KDE is like we were talking about, we have this like ongoing joke that people start on Windows. They're like, I hate Windows. And so they naturally correct themselves and move to something like Linux. And then they try out a bajillion Linux distros. They use Linux for 5 years, and then they realize, oh, what I've been looking for the whole time is Mac OS. It's like an ongoing joke, but like it's very simplified. It's obviously a joke, and it's not something that's like actually serious. And so I made that comparison with GNOME and KDE. It's like you're gonna start with like Unity or something crazy, and then you're going to like find these different DEs, and you're gonna stumble on KDE, and you're gonna be like, wow, this is so powerful. I can do so much with it. But then you like lose your mind with KDE, and then you go, you know what, GNOME's actually the right answer. But that's my personal hot take. I think GNOME is great. As someone who was on KDE and I felt like I had to like customize and do so much with it to make it the way I wanted, I didn't want to do that anymore, and I just wanted something that was just kind of nice out of the box, and I liked GNOME. But
Yeah. What I was telling you, and I don't know if I told you this part, but I was trying out KDE because it's used on the Steam Deck, which I think a lot of people are using now,
right.
and I thought that was really interesting. And I don't know, this is the part I don't know if I told you. I actually have a Steam Deck myself. I just got one that I've been using
Oh,
recently, and it's been nice, and I've liked the KDE desktop experience on it when I have to
did I
switch to
like it?
desktop mode for whatever reason. So. Um, that's why I'm exploring it more. I mean, I haven't used it in desktop mode a lot because it's not really a desktop computer, it's just for
Right.
gaming mostly. But I was like, well, if they like it on there and other people are going to be experienced or are going to get experience with KDE because of that, because I think it's a really very popular gaming console at the moment that runs Linux. I thought maybe it's worth another look at it. So
Right. No, that's good. You know, if you like it, go for it. I'm mostly making a joke about the KDE thing because I actually, if I was
yeah,
to not use GNOME, I'd be using KDE, and I wouldn't be upset with it. It's just I personally prefer
right.
GNOME. Um, and
Yeah,
I didn't
I
know you had a
do
Steam
really
Deck.
like GNOME, I would just say. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
it's been good.
I um I was at so I got a gift card for the holidays, and I didn't know what to spend it on, and I called Jonah at Best Buy to ask him some questions about like 'cause some things I've never used, like the like some of the track pads and some of the stuff that Apple has, and I was like, I don't know if they're good or not. Um, but one of the things I was just looking at was the Switch because I don't own any
Mm,
gaming consoles, and then one of my friends has a Switch, and I thought to myself, okay, because I was looking at that OLED black and white Switch. It's a very nice design, and I was like,
it
even if
is.
I don't use it, it would still be a nice uh, thing to just show in the room because it looks nice. But I was
That is actually what I use my OLED Switch mostly for because as you know, I do actually own that exact Switch and it is very nice to look at and hold. But as you know, I'm not a huge gamer, so I don't use it that
I didn't know
often.
you had a
The
Switch.
occasional, yeah, no, I do have, I know, I have like two gaming consoles. It's the Switch and now the Steam Deck, and I barely use either one because I don't play a lot of games. But um, for what they do, they're really nice, and I like it. And
Yeah,
I occasionally play Mario Kart with someone or whatever, but
right. No, I'm with you. That's why I didn't get it because I was looking at it and I'm going, I kind of want this. And I thought, well, my friend has one. So why would I not just go to their place and play it? And I thought, oh, because I don't want to. And I
yeah.
thought, wait, so maybe I shouldn't buy this if I don't even want to play games on it. So,
I definitely suspect you wouldn't use it because, well, I guess just based on I don't really use
yeah, the
it.
Steam account that I opened a couple months ago that I'm sure you've seen hasn't had activity in like a month and a half.
Right.
I have been playing Bloons
Yeah,
Tower
I'm
Defense on
keeping
mobile
tabs
though.
on you. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you told me that you're leveling up. You're
Yeah,
catching up
dude,
to
I'm
me.
catching up to you. You better get a move on for our next
You
BTD
know,
stream.
I did play Bloons Tower Defense for like an hour or two yesterday or the day before, I think. Just I leveled up like twice just to widen the
Oh
gap a
my God.
bit. Back on the BTD6 grind, man.
Oh my gosh.
What were we doing? Q&As.
Right.
Oh, my chat jumped around again. I hate
You know
YouTube so
what? Oh,
much.
it jumped.
It's
So the timestamp thing is BS. Whoever told me that. Mine just jumped too.
ridiculous.
Talk about these
Sad.
timestamps and fake news. Oh, and I can't click to make that go away. So annoying.
Should I stop using fingerprint lock for unlocking my device and other app lock? I don't know if you have a different opinion, but I would say I encourage fingerprint locking whenever possible because of two things. One, it's very easy to disable. I would definitely like memorize the way to disable it really quickly. It depends on your device, but it's usually just like holding the power button or something to disable it if you need to. But otherwise, it prevents you from entering your password in public all the time. And especially like if you share your PIN or password among other things or have like an easy to recognize pattern, the amount of like just surveillance cameras and other cameras in public spaces and even like private spaces like stores is ridiculous nowadays. So I would be more concerned about if you're worried about any kind of risk when it comes to like finding your password, I'd be more concerned about people shoulder surfing or cameras picking that up than the risks of fingerprint locking. But
Right.
I
And there,
think we're in agreement. I think you've said that before in other shows, but maybe you have more to add.
right. I actually, you take a stance. I don't really take a stance. I just acknowledge.
Either one.
Okay, I'm like either one. It's kind of a pros and cons thing. I mean, there were those iPhone thefts. Actually, that story has an update recently too. So there was the iPhone thefts that were happening that we covered on the Techlore channel, where essentially people were at bars. It was happening to people mostly in like bar environments in nightlife and stuff like this. But they'd be on their phones and someone would be behind them and watch them type in their password. And the moment they got the password, they'd grab the phone from their hands and leave, steal the phone, and pretty much because they knew the device password, they can actually reset the password to their Apple account and lock them out of their Apple account entirely. So all iCloud, photos, everything, they'd be locked out of it, and they also couldn't track their own device because that's through iCloud. And so this was a big selling point to using something like Face ID because then you're not typing in your password in public. But this was a main thing. Like there was actually lots of reports of this happening, and it wasn't just a one-time incident. There was dozens, if not hundreds, of people impacted by this. And Apple recently, here's the update to this story. Apple recently now requires a biometric um, authentication in order to change your Apple ID from your phone, and it was acknowledging this issue, I believe. So
Is that true or is that coming out in iOS 17.3?
maybe it's coming out soon then. But all I saw was the update. I didn't see what OS it was tied to. I wouldn't be surprised if it's
What
coming
I
soon.
saw, my memory, I'd have to look at the article, but I thought it was opt-in and it's coming out in the next update. So I think it is still a
Got
flaw
it.
that exists today,
Got
which
it.
is ridiculous to me. I mean, that's a huge flaw in Apple devices, I would say.
Huge flaw.
Um, that that they haven't that they took so long to address. I mean, that was like the beginning of this year, I think, when the reports were coming out, or maybe even late last year. I don't remember. Um,
Right. Well, I think it's the
Pretty
limitation of
ridiculous.
how Apple sees their security, which is they trust themselves and the device itself to be secure, which is kind of a
Hmm.
fair assessment to make because if the device itself isn't secure, then like what else can you trust or count on? But it's kind of insane how a device password is what you need to reset your cloud password.
Right.
That's just insane. It should be the cloud password to get into the cloud account, not your local iPhone password. I think it's crazy, but I don't really know. I'm sure they had some reason why they opted for that system. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I agree. Thank you for clearing it up. So I guess we'll both have to look into that. I assume you're probably right, though, that it's next update and it's not out yet.
Yeah.
But
Coming soon.
yeah, I will be opting into that right away.
Yeah, for sure.
Luca said Proton Pass and Simple Login will be merging aliases, by the way, which is awesome. So I was talking with Sun one day because I had the Proton Pass beta before it was public, I believe. Sun is the developer for Simple Login, who's now working for Proton, and they already told me that like this is going to happen at some point. So I'm super excited to see it. You already can actually see Proton Pass aliases in Simple Login, I'm fairly certain, but I don't think you can do the inverse. You can't see Simple Login aliases inside Proton Pass. But it's going to be awesome to see those merged. They also asked opinions on Ecosia. I actually don't know why Ecosia is brought up in the privacy community a lot. Because it's a environmental search engine, which if you like that for the environmental purposes, then by all means go for it. But I actually haven't seen any reason to think Ecosia is any more privacy respecting than Bing. Like they don't unless I just haven't seen that. I looked at their privacy policy. There wasn't anything there that was that much better than Ming. So I don't know if you have a different opinion.
No, I haven't really looked into it, so I'm not sure.
Ken's comment earlier with the Henry, they're now responding saying, was just saying hello. Hello.
5 exclamation points. Well, hello, Ken.
Ooh, Philip has a really good question. How do you create engagement around privacy issues without seeming like a crazy conspiracy theorist? That's a good question. Um, on my end, I mean, I
That
do.
is something that we. Sorry, you can go first.
Um, on my end, I mean, it's pretty much what we do on the channel, which is like we make accessible stuff. We don't rely on like BS necessarily. Things that aren't confirmed, things that don't have evidence. Like we try to cite here, hey, this is why this is an issue, and here's why this is an issue for this specific demographic and why you might want to be concerned about that. And I covered this in an SR Q&A recently on surveillance report, but pretty much my approach lately has been to cite issues in the world that aren't in the first world countries. Because I think, especially Americans, have this idea that the entire world functions the same way the US does, which is everything seems mostly fine. I can trust my government mostly, and there's no issue. But in lots of the world, it's illegal and it's criminalized to be LGBT. There's still a death penalty for that in some parts of the world. And if you are someone who is of that demographic in those countries, you need privacy to survive. It's an actual survival tool in lots of the world for depending on who you are and your demographic. And so I normally point people towards those examples first. And then I say, look, it's important for those people, but even here in the first world country, surveillance capitalism is a big deal, and you never know when those things are going to be criminalized in this country. And it's good to ask people, hey, if the opposing, because we have a two-party system here, if the opposing party actually got what they wanted, would you want that party to know everything about you? Is kind of a question that I like to pose as well. And then you can kind of go into like more of the individual side of things. But I've been starting with the big picture stuff and then working into the individual because I find that to be more effective in getting people to people immediately know you're not a crazy conspiracy theorist if you're citing like actual real issues in the world. Rather than seeing you as a crazy conspiracy theorist, they're going to see you as, oh, wow, this is actually something really important, and I can see why you think that's important. So I cut you off earlier, and I
Yeah.
don't know if you have anything else to add here.
No, that's all excellent advice. I think I misread the question at first, so I don't really have anything to add beyond what you were saying. I think that's really good, connecting it to the real world.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I do the same thing too. It's easy to get caught in the weeds of like, oh, this thing has this security feature and this thing doesn't, me. And it's like, get a fucking life. Like, to myself as well, you know? Like, I need to get a life because, like, some people literally just need access to the Tor browser to just look up something to not be thrown in prison. And that's a much
Right.
different place to be than where I'm at, as well as many of the people who are even privileged enough to be, like, leaving comments publicly about this, you know? So, that's my take on this. Lucas said they used Mole, but it was a lot slower than Firefox. And that's probably because Mole has a lot of hardening done by default from what I've seen. So I don't know what feature specifically. Do they disable things like
I think
JIT?
they disabled yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Okay.
I believe they
JavaScript in
do.
time. For,
Which, yeah, there's definitely a performance and security trade-off when it comes to secure browsers. Um, I, I, yeah, I don't really have anything to add because I haven't used Ice or Raven. I would probably, I'm mainly wondering how it's different from Firefox. I mean, but
right.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't add anything else.
I'm sure Mole has documentation on what they do, and I'm sure there might be ways to disable some of it. I don't know if that's true or not on
Hmm.
mobile because I don't know if Firefox ever re-enabled like the about config menu on mobile, but something to look into. We did get an update too because someone mentioned the T-Mobile text and how they're going to start spying on messages. They did leave an update here that this is them. So I'm citing the comment. I haven't looked into this. I don't know if it's even true, but they're saying that T-Mobile quietly updated their terms of service to include fines for content they don't agree with, and this starts in January 2024. And all I'll say to that is they've already been doing that. I was going to make a video on this, but actually some other people already did. So you can go on YouTube and type in T-Mobile blocking text messages. um, I was having this issue in my sudo where I was sending people a link to techlore.tech and I would send it as its own text, and the people would go, I never got a text. And so I started doing tests and I realized that it was tied to, no, was it T Mobile or Verizon? No, I think it was T Mobile. It was either T Mobile or Verizon, but I'm like 90% sure it was, no, it was T Mobile because I was on Mint Mobile at the time and I tried sending this through Mint Mobile and it looked like it just outright blocked the entire .tech TLD. And so you couldn't send any text through the .tech TLD. And you can go online, I'm not making this up, and you can look at forums of people saying they can't send links through T-Mobile SMS. And it turns out that T-Mobile does already do filtering of traffic to try to prevent. And like I get why they'd want to do it because spammers and scams and stuff like that. So I can see why they might be trying to get in there and prevent links like that from being shared, but you can't just block an entire TLD. And someone did a test on YouTube that I watched where they tried to see what kind of content that T-Mobile blocked, and they tried to do different religions and what religions were blocked by T-Mobile, and it was kind of an interesting test. So definitely something for all of you to look into. I was gonna make a video on it, but I never did. Um, and yeah, I don't know if you ever looked into that yourself.
No, that content blocking is super interesting. I'd have to look more into that. I have actually heard of the story that they're talking about here though, which is slightly different when they talk about fines. That that isn't like something that's happening to actual T-Mobile consumer customers. You get a lot of these like crazy news headlines like the ones that you shared because a lot of people don't understand the difference um between business to business and business to consumer products, basically. The fines that are being introduced, it's like thousands of dollars for sending phishing or social engineering attacks or something like that, or illegal content, that kind of thing. All of that's applicable to like bulk messaging services that T-Mobile provides to businesses, and they're basically cracking down on like those kind of companies sending spam through their service, which it's the fines are for a tool that T-Mobile customers would never use. And this is pretty normal in terms of operations as far as like business products go. So this is not something that's out of the norm at all, basically. The headlines have kind of taken the whole T-Mobile fine thing out of proportion, but you're not going to be fined $2,000 for sending a text to somebody that T-Mobile doesn't agree with. That's not a thing that's actually happening in 2024.
Right. That sounds like something I'd see from like some like YouTube channel that's like, you're now going to be screwed by T-Mobile, and it's like completely
Right.
dramatized.
Yeah, this is a completely different T-Mobile product that you're not involved with at all to begin with, so you don't have
Okay.
to worry about it, basically.
Okay. But the stuff I mentioned is real. And I
But
guess
yeah,
it's
that
not
stuff
tied to
is
this.
really interesting.
Yeah, I probably should do more research into it, but it's actually really annoying because T-Mobile. I wouldn't mind if T-Mobile just straight up had a page on their website that said, "Hey, we block certain web traffic because we think, we have block lists," and they don't even have to say what block lists they use, but it'd be cool if they at least acknowledged it. But they don't formally acknowledge this anywhere, which is really frustrating. So,
Mhm. This is all just evidence, further evidence to not use SMS at all, I think.
right. Um, can you explain to me this live stream thing? This thing where I click the emoji and it like sends emojis to things,
Oh
people.
yeah, the
What is
heart.
that?
Oh no, I clicked it. Now Google brought me to a Google sign-in page. Now my whole setup's messed up.
But like, what
I
is
guess I
it?
can't do that.
Is it for
I
me? Is it
don't
for
know.
them? I can do it too. I just don't understand it, but
It's that's something that I've first seen in like screen recordings of Facebook live posts where people like spam emojis. I don't know what the idea behind it is, but it seems to be popular.
yeah, well,
Um, among certain groups, everyone starts spamming reaction emojis now.
yeah. Well, I guess it makes it feel like it's more lively in here, but I don't know.
Maybe that's it. Things people just like things that catch their attention. It's why the popular thing right now on like TikTok and YouTube Shorts is like narrating content from Reddit or whatever, but like in the background they're playing like Minecraft parkour or some kind of
Jesus
video game to
Christ.
people gotta be watching something, listening to something,
It's
and all in short form
crazy.
content. It's a lot of attention grabbing stuff that these websites seem to really like.
I just can't
But yeah,
relate.
I don't get it. I know, right?
I just like I have like one thing to do at one time. So funny. Um, I'm kind of pooped out. I don't know about you. And we
Yeah,
just
we
hit
could
the
call
bottom.
it here.
Yeah. How about we'll do like I don't even want to do a last call to be honest. I'm pretty tired. Um, let me check things. Here we have the forum. Don't forget to join the forum, people, for sure.
Yes.
Discuss.techlore.tech. You can create new topics. You can engage with us. You can engage with other community members, and it's all publicly accessible information. So, um, like, you can even organically find this through search engines and stuff like that. It's all indexed, and so it's a really cool thing for you all to check out. And it's a great resource, and I love it. It's like my favorite privacy community. Obviously biased, completely biased, but I've had a great experience with it. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And again, these things are brought to everybody for free thanks to, in part our patrons at patreon.com/techlore. So definitely check us out on patreon.com/techlore. And if you join Patreon, you can actually log into our forum via Patreon and you get a special badge and like you get to brag to everybody else how you support us, which is really cool too. So just a way to combine the two things that I'm shilling showcasing, advertising, whatever you want to
Sure.
use. Um, but yeah, thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Jonah, as always, for tagging along with these. It's always more fun to do it with somebody. And we'll probably do one next month as well. And also, happy holidays. Happy New Year's to everybody.
Yeah.
And Christmas if you celebrated Christmas. And any other holidays out there that I might have missed. Anything else to say?
Like all of them, basically.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, all the holidays. No.
All right. Well, see everyone next time. And peace out.